And I bet you will agree with me that being in business for yourself is tough, right? It's a challenge because I don't care whether you're just getting started, trying to get off the ground, whether you're going in a fast growth mode. It is with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It wakes you up at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? Oh my gosh, I forgot to do this, or I still need to do that. We're always struggling. I think it is probably the hardest job in the world. And I have been a C-suite executive in a Fortune 100 company, and that was pretty stressful. In fact, I was the only female executive at the time. And so I know that's stressful, but when it's your own baby, when you have to go out and kill everything you eat every single day, right, exactly? Yeah, you've got to worry about every little thing. It's tough. And you know, there are lots of reasons for that. And I see small business owners who are struggling so much. And let me ask you this question. What do you think the average sole proprietor makes a year in the US? Gross. Anybody want to take a guess? 70,000 gross. Anybody else want to guess? Sole proprietor, no employees, what do they gross? 45. Who said 45,000? 40, that's okay. Here you go, you get a t-shirt, how's that? It's actually $44,000 a year, and they work an average of 52 hours a week. And of course, forget about a sick day, right? What do you do when you want to call in sick? There's nobody to cover for you. And vacations, the research shows that small business owners rarely take vacations. And if you do take a vacation, how many of you work on that vacation? Hello, you know, I'll actually tell you a really cute story. So I have 4 step-grandchildren, and I took all the kids on vacation to Mexico. And so we're sitting there one night, and I went in to answer emails. The kids are taking their showers and stuff. We're going to go out to dinner. And one of the younger boys comes in, plops up on the bed, and they call me Gigi. And he said, Gigi, you work just way too hard. And I said, honey, I said, did you like going on this trip? He said, yeah. I said, did you like swimming with the dolphins today? Oh, yeah. And I said, Gigi has to work. And he looks at me, he's like, okay, bye. And that was it. So, I mean, we work all the time. It's true, we do. But here's an alarming statistic. As hard as we work, we're not growing and getting the financial success that we deserve because it's so hard for us out there. And so I put this little slide up here because there's an alarming statistic right now that shows that the number of small business startups is below the number of closures. So there are more people going out of business by about 100,000 than there are people starting businesses. And that's the first time that statistic has ever occurred in the US since the Census Bureau began keeping track of all of that. So my question is, are small businesses becoming extinct? Are we a dying breed like the dinosaurs were? Will our entrepreneurial spirit be squashed? So we also know that even though there are fewer small businesses starting right now in the US, and of those that do start, they go out of business a lot quicker. And even those who are doing it and getting it off the ground, they're creating fewer jobs. So I happen to do a number of appearances on television in New York. I'm a small business contributor on Fox Business. I've been on ABC. I do some things on CNN. And when people ask me what I think about the economy, like if a good jobs report comes out and everybody starts jumping up and down and yes, 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 everything's getting great, right? And Janet Yellen comes on and says, well, we may just be raising the interest rate. And I go on television and I say, you know what? Small business is a huge segment of our economy. And until we change this picture, our recovery is going to be tepid at best. Now you can remember Susan Solovic said that on April 21st, 2016, and see if I'm right, by the end of the year. But nobody looks at what's happening into our segment. And we know how powerful this market segment is. So why is that? Now I talk to small businesses all over the country. And they tweet me, they talk to me through my website, I'm out speaking to groups just like this. And I hear a lot of them blame the economy. Well, I think that's a legitimate concern, don't you? Consumer confidence has been down. They blame the lack of access to capital. You know, another legitimate concern. I hear a lot of complaints about regulations. Is anybody nervous about the $15 an hour minimum wage? Or how about the proposed increase in overtime laws to $50,000 a year? Now, folks, I grew up in southern Missouri in the sticks. And I have to tell you, $50,000 a year in New York City is not going to get you very far. You might be living on a cardboard box on the street. $50,000 in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, that's a good salary. So people are concerned about regulations. They're concerned about tax reform. And it's stifling this entrepreneurial spirit. Yet I don't care what economy we're living in. There are businesses that always emerge and they soar to success. So I started studying what really makes the difference. What separates the really successful businesses from the ones who flounder, struggle, or even fail and go out of business. And so what I've learned is what I call the 1% edge. This is the critical difference that will make or break your business. And so today I'm going to share with you what that edge is, how you can define it for your business. I'm going to help you understand the process that you can put into place to your business to make sure you manage and sustain that edge and that growth. And I'm going to then show you how to leverage it. And my goal is to hopefully have all of you walk out of here, transform the way you're currently thinking about your businesses, go back, energized, and hit it out of the park. Build that financial wealth that you deserve and desire as you grow your businesses. Because as you build financial wealth, you know what you do. You employ others. You pay them a fair wage. You give back to the community. You make a difference. And that's my goal for all of us today. Is everybody on board with me? All right, let's go. Oh, all right, well, I kind of blew this, but I'm going to tell you a story. And you're going to know what I'm talking about now because I goofed up and put the wrong slide up. So about 40 years ago, there were a couple of young guys running around trying to figure out their careers. And they couldn't get themselves off the ground. They just were, wasn't happening for them. They've been friends for a long time. They're in their 20s. And so they get together and they said, well, you know what? Hey, let's just go into business for ourselves. We don't want to go to work for the man. After all, this was the 70s, right? And if any of you are old enough like me to remember the 70s, you know that you didn't want to go to work for the man. So they said, okay, well, we'll go into our own business. And they didn't know what kind of business they wanted to go into. But one thing for sure they knew is they really liked to eat. And of course, their favorite food was ice cream. So they got a $5 correspondence course, learned how to make ice cream, scraped together $12,000, and there's life savings and a little bank loan, and took out got a vacant filling station, gas station in Burlington, Vermont, and they opened their little ice cream store. And of course, you know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Ben & Jerry's, right? Now, the interesting thing, the reason I'm bringing up this story to you is Ben & Jerry's story could have ended right there in Burlington, Vermont. If they did business the way most of us do business when we get started, and that is the cookie cutter approach to business. It's pretty much the same old stuff. But Ben & Jerry didn't do that. They decided to throw in all these funky flavors. And then pretty soon, people were lined up to get into that little ice cream shop in Burlington, Vermont. And why? I mean, after all, it's ice cream, right? They didn't invent ice cream. And other than all those funky flavors, the basic foundation of making ice cream is pretty much the same. But what they did was they created that 1% edge, that just a noticeable difference, that gave people a reason to change their buying habits, to go to Ben & Jerry's ice cream rather than the Dairy Queen or Baskin Robbins. And so the story goes on, and they're a huge entrepreneurial success. And of course, we all love those kinds of success stories. But it was the 1% edge, just a noticeable difference, that allowed Ben & Jerry's to, as I said, hit it out of the park. If you wanted what Ben & Jerry offered, you had to go to Ben & Jerry's. You could not get it anywhere else. Now I want to ask you all, you probably all have your favorite flavors of Ben & Jerry's, am I right? What's your favorite flavors? Who? Chunky Monkey, Cherry Garcia. Who said that? Cherry Garcia. You're my new best friend, all right? So let me explain to you. What's your name?
Sally.
Sally, this is empty, so don't come up here and try to grab it, okay? But Cherry Garcia is my favorite flavor too. And the interesting thing about Cherry Garcia ice cream is it's named after who? Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. Now, Jerry Garcia is noted to have said, it's not enough to be the best at what you do. You have to be perceived as the only one who does what you do. The only one. If they want what you have, they have to go to you. The market has a reason to pick you over your competitors because they can't get it anywhere else. You are the only one who provides that service. So you're probably looking at me now and saying, okay, that sounds really great. But, hey, that's Ben and Jerry's story, and how in the heck do I do this in my business? So let's take a look at that. This, and we're going to go into this in a little bit more detail, but this is my 1% edge process. So the first thing you have to do is you have to really reflect on your current business. What are you doing? You've got to have think time. And that's something when you're juggling a million balls and a million, hours a day, you don't have time, right? 98% of entrepreneurs don't work think time into their schedules. The 2% who do are more successful. So you've got to have think time to reflect. And that means you got to get out of your business, away from it. You can't have your head buried. So you got to have think time. Then you've got to really analyze what's happening in your business. And I mean every single aspect of your business. Not just your product and service, but your internal processes, your systems, your people, your technology, your accounting principles. Everything that you are doing needs to be looked at under a microscope. Then, and I'll talk about this in more detail, you got to get rid of the dead weight. The stuff that just ain't working, get rid of it. I don't care if it's your people, your product, your technology, whatever it is, get rid of it. Don't keep trying to force it to work. Cut it loose and let it go. Then you've got to decide what is it you want to do and create a plan. And when I get to that section, we're going to talk about how you define your strategies with an above and a below the line planning. I'm not asking you to go out and write a big formal business plan. Because, even my eyes gloss over when I talk about that, even though I've had to do it because I've raised venture capital in my companies. But I tell you what you need to do is a plan that's workable and livable and helps you stay on track to build your 1% edge. Then you need to be able to execute and measure that plan. Because you got to know whether it's working or not. You don't want to stick it in the drawer and go, okay, well, we did that, now let's go on. This has got to be a constant, if not weekly, every other week analysis. Execute, measure, and review. And then you're going to adjust your plan and continue, or you're going to adjust it and change your positioning. And then when you've gone through this whole list, guess what you're going to do? You're going to start at the bottom and start all over again. It's a cycle. Because if you stop there, your business stops evolving and stops growing, and you lose the edge. Gaining the edge is not a one-time thing. It is a process that needs to be part of your company's DNA. So let's talk a little bit about this. You can't become fat, dumb, and happy in your business. There's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, in today's fast-paced, changing environment, if it ain't broke, you still better be thinking about fixing it now. Because it'll be broken in about a half an hour. And yet, this is a problem that not only small businesses have, but big companies as well. So if you think about brand names that you grew up with that aren't around anymore, it's because they didn't evolve this process. They didn't change with the market. And that's why only 71 of the original Fortune 500 companies remain today. And I think the best example of this is Kodak. Kodak, do you know Kodak invented digital photography? But their leadership said, oh, well, hey, we don't want to do that. That's not our core business. Pictures and film and printing, that's our business, and we're just going to table this for a while. And of course, what happened? They went bankrupt, right? And they're still struggling, I think. You can't be fat, dumb, and happy. You can't sit in your office and think you know everything that's going on in the market, because I guarantee you, you don't. You might think you know what your customers want. You might think you know where the market's going and the trends where they're going, but you don't. So you can't rest on your laurels and be fat, dumb, and happy. I'm also going to tell you that probably 99% of you in this room are not in the business you think you're in. Most small businesses are selling something. Successful companies with the edge are problem solvers. They're solutions. That's how they create the edge. Let me go back to the Kodak example. Kodak wasn't in any of the businesses they even thought they'd been in. Kodak was in the storytelling business. It was about families telling stories with pictures of family weddings and get-togethers and reunions and kids' birthdays. So it didn't matter whether it was printed photography or digital photography. If they had understood their core business, they would have understood how to stay ahead of the market trends and not fallen into the problems they had. Now, I happen to love teddy bears. Yes, I'm a middle-aged woman who has many, many, many of them around my house. But, teddy bears, they're teddy bears. I bet most of us growing up, you had a favorite teddy bear, right? And the process of buying a teddy bear is pretty much the same. You go in the store, you can buy one at Walmart or whatever for $10. You can go to Germany and buy Steve bears for hundreds of dollars. You can go online and pick them out and order them and have them delivered. This one I happen to get at Macy's. He's really cuddly too. But pretty much the same. And these bears look pretty much the same. They're teddy bears, right? What's the big difference about a teddy bear? Well, this guy is very different. This guy is a Build-A-Bear teddy bear. Build-A-Bear Workshop teddy bear. Now, why is he so different? Yeah, if you just look at him, he looks pretty much the same. But Maxine Clark, who founded Build-A-Bear Workshop, realized that the teddy bear wasn't just about an object. Her whole philosophy was about building memories and experiences. So what do? You go in, your niece, nephew, daughter, grandchild, whatever, gets to pick out the little bear. They stuff it. They put a little heart in there. They can put a little message in there. And of course, they get to go pick out all the cute little clothes, right? And then, of course, all that adds up, by the way. And then you go and you get a birth certificate for the little guy. And then it goes home in its own cute little condo. And on his birthday, you get a certificate that says, come in for a fluffing. And while you're there, buy more stuff. But it was so brilliant. That's why over the holidays, you see people in New York City lined up to get in Build-A-Bear Workshop when they could go to FAO Schwartz and buy a teddy bear. Because they're not buying the teddy bear. They're buying the memory. And over the holidays this year, there was a commercial that Build-A-Bear did which gave me goosebumps because it captures the essence of what I'm saying. So I'm going to hopefully play it for you. So I told you, right? Doesn't that kind of tug at your heartstrings? Yeah. But she's selling memories. Build-A-Bear is so good at capturing what the customer really is buying. Now, I used to teach professional selling skills, and we had this old story about the man who goes into the hardware store, and he walks up to a young salesperson and says, I'd really like to buy a drill. So the eager young sales guy gets out all these different drills, and this one's made out of this material, and it goes this speed and that speed, and this one does this, and this one does that. And the man's eyes were sort of glazed over. So the seasoned salesperson goes over and says to the customer, so what is it you need, sir? He said, well, I'm working on this project, and I need to make a hole in my wall. And he picked up one of the drills, and he said, this will give you the exact hole you need. He sold it. You see, because the customer didn't care about the drill, he wanted the hole in the wall. That's what he was buying. So you have to tap in and listen to what it is your customers are buying. Why are they choosing your product or service? What is their need? And how do you do that? Well, you listen to the marketplace. Now, back when I was in the corporate world, if you wanted to really get feedback and listen to what your customers wanted, you had to hire an expensive research firm and pay a lot of money. Well, the great thing for about all of us in small businesses now, you don't need to do that thanks to technology. You can go on to review sites like Yelp. You can go on to Business Circle, which you just saw, and see what people are saying. What are they talking about? What are their conversations? What are you seeing there? You can go on to social media discussion groups and join in and ask questions and get feedback. You can go on to Twitter. You know, I'll tell you a little secret, okay? One of the things I do with Twitter is I follow all my competitors. And I have it all set up on a system called TweetDesk. There are other things to use it for. And I want to see what they're doing because I want to be able to differentiate myself from them. I also want to see what people are saying about them. You know, I follow big brands that I want to do business with and engage them on Twitter and listen to what they're talking about because most of my customers are major companies. And in fact, I also, ladies, you guys will love this. So I have a certain brand of dresses that I like. And so I started following the dressmaker and commenting and posting pictures of me when I was on television or making a speech in one of their dresses. And I got some free dresses. So just saying, but you really have to listen. And then you can't go to your customers and say, what else do you need? Because a lot of times people don't even know. They don't even know. If you do ask them, you've got to ask them open-ended questions and listen. Really listen to what they're saying. Because I will guarantee you right now, there is a market void for every product and service in here. There is some kind of a void, some need that's not being met. And once you become that solution, or find that solution, then you can use your innovative, creative skills, your team, in order to be that solution provider. Now you're really adding value to your customer. You're getting married to that person almost because you're building a real partnership with them. A real partnership. You're not just a commodity. You're not just the same old, same old. You now have true value that you're giving your customer. You've got that 1% edge. So with all of this information you've gathered, as I said at the beginning, you want to sit back and reflect and think about it. And you've got to take time to really, really let it sink in. You can't make quick reactions and decisions. You've got to schedule that time into your calendar. You know, when you're running your own business, I always analogize it to being like a little hamster on a treadmill. You've seen them. They're just running as fast as they can, but you know what? They never get anywhere. You don't want to be the hamster on the treadmill. You want to be the business owner that's going forward with that competitive edge to really build your financial wealth and success. So you've got to question everything in your business. If I weren't doing business this way today, would I continue to do business this way? And if so, yes, why? And if no, why not? And you can't have any sacred cows. I bet most of you, because you're entrepreneurs, hate to hear somebody say, well, we do it that way because we've always done it that way. Or immediately, oh, that won't work. No, how do you know? If you've had kids, you know, like you want to get them to try food, and then they say to you, oh, no, I don't like that. Well, have you tried it? No. I'm like, how do you know? Because I just know. So that's what I think of when I hear small business owners doing that. You don't know until you try. And the great thing about being in small business is the fact that you're flexible enough. If it doesn't work out, you can change your direction. Whereas a big company, they're like elephants. They can't do that. So you have opportunities to look at these new solutions for your customers, and if it's not going the right direction, turn around or modify it. And if you fail, which I really hate that word, but if you fail, it's not a big deal, because if you're not really failing, you're not really doing anything. You're just on the sidelines. All great people in this world have had failures. Bill Gates refers to failures as research. So if you think about that, don't be afraid of it. Do not be paralyzed by by the concern that you're going to fail. And then, as I said before, you've got to cut the dead weight. So here's where I ask you to take every product and service that you offer and look at the profitability of that particular product and service. What are the most profitable areas of your business? And it may be that one of the areas of your business has a 10 or 15% profit margin, but you love it. It's your baby. And yet something else has 35, 40, 50% profit margin. You know what? Guess where you should put your efforts? This is like pretty much common sense. But a lot of us just don't even do that analysis. We don't look at those profit margins for the various aspects of our businesses. Maybe it's a pricing issue you need to address. It's another opportunity to consider that. You also need to look at your internal processes. Are you using technology that is helping to increase your productivity and your profitability? Or are you still using old systems or systems that don't collaborate with one another? Or a system that's way too big for your needs and so therefore nobody wants to use it? Have you ever done that? It looked great, right? Yeah, I went to a seminar once and somebody had this great system that would, send out all this video that you did and all this automated sales stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow, that is so cool. Sign me up. And I got home, I was like, okay, I can't figure this out. So, you've got to buy things that are the right fit for your business, but that can also grow with your business. But when you put the right process and systems in place, what happens is you can begin to look at your workflow. Are there redundancies in your business? Are there things that slip through the cracks, would impact your performance? Are your team players collaborating with each other? Are you using opportunities to upsell or cross-promote? That's what technology and systems and process will do for your business, as well as helping you understand your numbers. And then you really have to look at your people. Now, when I say looking at your people, you want people who are going to buy into the 1% edge, who want to be innovative and creative, who are willing to take a chance, who are willing to have new ideas. And you want to empower them to do that. And if you have people on your team who are underperforming or just showing up, sitting there and leaving, you know those kind, right? You need to get rid of them. And that may sound harsh. And I know in a small business when we develop our teams and they become like family, but you have a duty to your business and your other team members to make sure you have the right people in the right seats to drive your business to that 1% competitive edge that will help you soar to success. And I know when you're running your business, if you just have a few employees, sometimes we think, well, somebody in that chair is better than nobody, right? I need the help. Know that somebody in that chair who's the wrong person in that chair is dragging your business down. And I see that a lot with businesses who hire their friends and family members. I tell you, when you have to let a family member go, it makes for a really awful Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm just saying, if you haven't done that, don't make that mistake. I don't care how cheap they're willing to work for you. So make sure you've got people that are really focused on growing your business, that are innovative, that are fast thinkers, and that are just as invested in your business growth as you are. I mean, no one will ever be as invested as you, the founder, but you want them engaged, and you want them to be empowered. I always call it I call it build ACE teams. So they're accountable. I was talking to a lady, I was speaking in Iowa, and she has a business, and she said, I can't get my employees to really step up to the plate and be responsible. And I said, then you've got the wrong employees. You want people who are accountable. You want people who are collaborative. It's like nails on a blackboard to me when somebody turns around and says, well, that's not my job. No, it's everybody's job when you're running a small business. Everybody's. So you want accountable, collaborative, and you want them empowered. That's your ACE team. So I worked for a boss once who used to say to me, Susan, I am giving you the opportunity to fail. And I thought that was really an odd thing to say. Why would he want me to fail? But what he was really saying is, I think you're smart enough to figure it out. Go get it done. And if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. So when I've built businesses, one of the things I say to my team is, you know what? What's the worst case scenario here? And people start to talk about it, and I'm like, no. The worst case scenario is if somebody dies. If nobody dies, we're good. So if your worst case scenario is everybody ends up alive, you're okay. You adjust and you move forward. So that's why you need to cut the dead weight. Now, in doing so, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So you might recognize these things, right? What are they? Crocs, right? I don't know, I don't mean to offend anyone, but these are like the ugliest things I've ever seen. I am so sorry. But, yeah, I know, they're comfortable. Mario Bartonelli, what's his name, the chef, he wears them. But let's think about Crocs. I think this is a great example. So Crocs hit the market, and they came to market with affordable, functional, comfortable footwear, right? It was pretty new and cool. And what they did was, instead of going through the typical retail distribution channels, they did something what was called a blue ocean strategy. So they poo-pooed the traditional channels, and they went out in kiosks, in malls, and really cool boutique shops. And so all of a sudden, it was cool to have Crocs because you couldn't get them anywhere. Very cool to have Crocs. In fact, so cool that after 2 years, that young company went public. And initially the stock soared, and then seemingly it just tanked. It sure did. It tanked. Now, why did it tank? These are still the same shoes, right? It tanked because they lost their cool factor. You could now buy Crocs at the 7-Eleven store. Okay, so hey, nothing cool there. I'm done. Now, I wasn't invited into the boardroom at Crocs, but had I been there, I suspect their management team thought about 3 different scenarios. So one is they could spend a lot of money on R&D and come up with another cool product. But that's expensive. The other thing they could do is they could go out and spend a lot of money on advertising. Maybe they get some really hot dynamite model like Giselle or something to start running around in Crocs and try to recapture the cool factor. But that's expensive too. So my point here is, what they did is they took what they do really, really, really well, and that is affordable, functional, comfortable footwear. They sat back, they listened to the marketplace, they realized that this had lost their cool factor, and so what they did was they just changed their model slightly. They tweaked it, a 1% difference, a 1% edge, and they came out with their lifestyle brand. Now these are cute. I would wear these. I would wear these. In fact, they have 300 different lifestyle shoes now. And even my husband has Crocs golf shoes. They didn't change the core of their business. What they did was they opened it up to new opportunities. So if you look at your own business, what are the new opportunities? Are there opportunities to collaborate with another business to make a bigger offering? Do you have excess capacity that you could take advantage of in your business? If you look at what Uber is doing, they have right now people on the street who are out in their cars, and obviously not every car is going to have a fare all day long. So they've rolled out now in New York City your Uber food. And every day they have a restaurant that's featured, and if you order there, Uber will bring your food. It's a paperless transaction because your credit card's already there. So they're taking up that excess capacity that they have in their business and looking for new revenue streams without jerry-rigging the core business they're in, which is transportation and technology. So that's an opportunity. Are there niche markets that you could look at where your product, if you tweaked it, or your service, if you tweaked it, might attract a new business? I will give you another example. I actually invested in a company as an angel investor recently, and it's called GenieCast. It's in beta testing right now. So as a professional speaker, I have excess capacity, but there are times when somebody might say, oh, gosh, sure wish we would have thought to get Susan Solovic to our meeting. GenieCast will now beam me up, Scotty. I will almost be like live in the room at an event. I won't have to travel. My speaking fee will be less, and yet I will have full engagement with the audience. It's a way for speakers like myself to take up our excess capacity, those hours that we're not working. So I'm obviously willing to do it for a little less if I can practically sit in my pajamas somewhere and do it, right? So you can look at those things. And when I mentioned collaboration, you know, we all love peanut butter and jelly, right? So, you know, you've got two very different products right there, but when you put peanut butter and jelly together on a sandwich, Americans eat thousands of those sandwiches every year. Although, I don't know, peanut butter now, everybody's got peanut allergy. So I don't know if that's still the case, but it historically has been the case. Those are the kind of simple little things that you can do to think about your business. And when you start to identify these problems and analyze them, or opportunities and analyze them, you know, you can't do everything. So I used to have a business partner who always said to me, Susan, when you say yes to one thing, you are effectively saying no to something else because you can't do it all. So when you sit down with your team or even by yourself, look at those opportunities that you see out there and start to list them from 1 to 10, and then draw a line at 5 and focus on those top 5. Now those top 5, they may change as you go through the process of the 1% edge. But if you spread yourself too thin and you lose your focus, your business will start to slip as well. So just think about making your best better. And when you build this plan and you've got that list of your top 5 opportunities and strategies that you're going to follow, you do need to put it into a plan. But as I said earlier, it's content over substance. This is not that you're going out to raise capital. You're not going out to see a venture capitalist and present your formal business plan. This is your working plan for you and your team. And the reason I say content over substance is because it's got to work for your business. There's got to be strategies and tracking and goals and milestones that you're going to stick to. But I did talk to a business banker once who said one of his customers came in one day, needed a business loan. And the banker said, well, okay, you know, fine, where's your business plan? And the customer said, well, I don't have one. He said, well, you know what, come back when you have one. About an hour later, the customer walks in. He'd gone to the grocery store, got a paper bag, this is a true story, wrote his business plan that was in his head on the back of the paper bag. The banker looked at it, the guy got his loan. Wow. So if you really know your business, it's content over substance. And I think so many of us get intimidated by the thought of business planning, but it's a critical aspect of your business. And one of the biggest things, I'm going to go back to being a solution provider, that you need to keep in the forefront of your mind is, why am I the solution? What's the problem? Why am I the solution? So I mentioned to you I raised venture capital. And when you go out to talk to a venture capitalist, it's a very, very different conversation than you would have with most anyone else in business. Because you got about, I don't know, maybe a minute, if you're lucky, to capture their attention. So they don't want to hear about how wonderful your product is and how great you are and all that. In fact, I was watching Shark Tank last night, and there was this woman on there who made these chocolate pretzels, you know, and they were in a container and all that. And they were raking her over the coals because she couldn't say why someone else couldn't come in and just do the very same thing. And she was asking for $400,000. But when you're going out to pitch the VCs, the first thing you say is, where's the pain in the market? Here's the pain in the market. Here's why I'm the right solution. Here's how much money I need. Here's how I'm going to use it. And here's what's going to be your return on investment. And even though you're not raising capital, that's a good theory to keep in your brain. If somebody ever came up to ask you, what is it you're doing? The problem, the solution, and how I'm going to get there. Those three things. So your grocery bag plan. As I said, you need to execute and measure. So if you don't have those goals and objectives and milestones put down on paper, it's real easy to get off track. Real easy. Because it's always like, oh, I didn't get to that today, but you know what, I'll get to it tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes next week, and then next month, and guess what, half the year is over, and you still haven't done it, and one of your competitors has, and whoops, you're already behind. So you've got to give yourself that structure, that discipline. I did a Periscope thing the other day, and I play the piano. So I sat down, I played a little Rachmaninoff prelude, and I said, in the Periscope, I said, you know, I didn't start off playing a Rachmaninoff prelude. I started off doing simple little John Thompson exercises, scales. You know, I made a lot of mistakes. I don't know how, my mom probably put earplugs in, I don't know. But it took a lot of discipline, a lot of practice, and learning the fundamentals. And that's really what it takes to build that 1% edge and a successful business opportunity. So you're going to review your results. I'm going to quickly kind of run through this because we're running out of time. And then, as I said, you either adjust because you're realizing that's not the right way to go, or you can continue down that path and keep executing on the plan, constantly reviewing. And then finally, you are going to repeat, keep repeating the process. It's a circle, business circle, it's a circle. It has to become part of the DNA of your company. It's not a process that is ever finished. It's not a one-time exercise. It is a process. And then finally, just quickly, you've got to broadcast your brand. So you got to let people know the value proposition that you are bringing to the market. And that means you've got to be able to tell your story. But you've got to tell your story in a way that your audience can hear it. So you need to learn to talk about your product or service with their needs in mind, not what you really want them to know about how great your product is. That's critically important. And I'm going to tell one quick personal story, then I'm going to take some questions. So we all know that this election cycle is really interesting, right? That's kind of an understatement. So I had one of the first internet-based video companies that focused on small business. And that was right when Donald Trump was rolling out Trump University. And so he had some video on there and a little bit on entrepreneurship. So I won an award in New York for having the most innovative company under 100 employees. And he was winning that night the same award ceremony for Entrepreneurial Lifetime Achievement. So he was one of the last ones to come in, and my table was toward the back. His, of course, was in the front. So I grabbed the guy sitting next to me with a camera, and I said, guess what? We're going to go meet Donald Trump. And the guy like, Susan, you're going to get us kicked out of here. Seriously? I said, so what? They'll send my trophy to me. Who cares? So I went up, and he was sitting down next to his absolutely gorgeous wife. She's really beautiful. So I tapped him on the shoulder, and he stood up. And he's very tall, by the way. And then the hair on top, whoa. Anyway, so the first thing he did was put his arm around me and pull me in, and he said, you're beautiful. So I got out of his embrace, and I pointed my finger, and I said, that doesn't matter, but you need to be doing business with me. And he said, okay, give me your pitch. So I gave him my pitch. He said, call me in the morning, here's my number. So I called, and we had some meetings, and the good thing is, he never said you're fired, but the blessing, actually he said I had a lot of chutzpah, but the other thing is, it was a blessing in disguise because you've read in the news what's happening with Trump University. So, you know, everything works out for a reason, but you've got to be willing to ask and broadcast your brand and be able to tell your story like that. When somebody comes up to you, you've got to be able to tell them why you are the solution to all their problems and why they need to change their buying habits to do business with you because your company has the 1% edge. One final challenge for you, and I'm going to take questions, when you go back to your business, one of the big first exercises I want you to do is I want you to take your marketing literature and I want you to take the logo off the top that identifies your brand, and I want you to put the logo of your competitor on there and then see if it still works. If it does, my friends, you do not have the 1% edge.